Okay. So yesterday we were doing foreign policy, correct? The Kellogg-Briand Pact, remember that? Okay. Piece of paper that said we're going to outlaw war. We talked about Coolidge in Latin America and now Hoover in Latin America. Okay. And so his Secretary of State is a guy named Henry Stimson. Okay. And so Stimson comes up with what's called the Stimson Doctrine, and it mirrors the Monroe Doctrine. And I know everybody in here, my honors class, remembers Monroe Doctrine. You shaking your head back? You remember that? Nicole, you remember the Monroe Doctrine? Like general idea. Okay, good. Jackson remembers, okay? Basically told Europe, you stay out of our hemisphere, we'll stay out of your hemisphere. Don't meddle in our affairs over here, right? So what the Stimson Doctrine says to Latin America, who we've been bullying with the Marines, yes? We're going to stay out of your business as long as American lives are not at stake. We're going to stay out of your business, Latin America. Okay? Even if we don't like the political culture of your country or your leaders, we're going to stay out. What Stimson is trying to do is improve relations with people in our hemisphere. I want you to think this is smart, guys. Because World War II is coming, right? And we don't know that necessarily during the Hoover administration. But is it not a good idea, if we are a two-ocean nation, to have friends, everybody in the hemisphere, to be your friend? Because everybody in your hemisphere is your friend, you do not have to worry about invasion unless it comes from across an ocean. That's pretty good. Okay? So the Stimson Doctrine does work. It helps improve relations. Okay? And then when Roosevelt's elected in 32, takes office in 33, he's going to be the first president of the United States to get on an airplane and fly to another country and meet with another head of state. And that first head of state that he will meet with is the president of Mexico. He'll fly to Mexico City. Air Force One is born. Okay? This relationship works. So when World War II does break out, guys, every single nation in the Western Hemisphere will declare war on the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now, then Argentina kind of has a long, they kind of like the fascism thing a little bit. So they were the last country to declare war. They want to see who's going to win first, and then they chose that. But as we'll talk about, the Caribbean, Mexico, Brazil will all play a role in World War II. A small role, but they'll play a role, and as will Canada. Okay, so most of them are not going to be sending troops to Europe or the Pacific and that sort of thing, but they're on our side. Okay, so this is some far-reaching decisions being made here that are good. Okay, all right, next slide. This is a map of our involvement in Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay, Cuba, occupied American troops, 1898. That's the Spanish-American War. Okay, Platt Amendment, 1901. U.S. intervention, 1906, 1909. Momentary intervention, 1917. Veracruz, Mexico, 1914. Nicaragua, 1909 and 12 and 11 and 16. Panama, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, we pick up in the Spanish-American War. That's our imperialism. Okay, so you can go to both of these places without a passport. Okay, Haiti, net troops sent 1915. Dominican, 1905, 1916. Okay, the bully that I showed you yesterday. There's America and Latin America. Okay. All right. Last slide. Japan. So the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which was supposed to bring about world peace, was in 1928. So we outlawed war for 3 years on the planet. Okay. Japan had signed the Kellogg-Briand Pact. They were one of the signatories. Okay. Now, let me give you a little history. You guys remember hearing of a war called the Russo-Japanese War? Okay. Took place roughly about the same time as the Spanish-American War, at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So in this war, Japan and Russia fought, and when it was over, Japan retained control of this peninsula right here, known as Korea. Okay? So from basically 1903 to 1945, the Japanese controlled the Korean peninsula. Okay? Now, because Japan is an island nation, they have a shortage of what? Natural resources. Okay? A crisis is going to take place at the border between Korea and China. It deals with a railroad. And there was some type of explosion, and the Japanese blamed the Chinese for it. Okay? Was this a true incident or was it contrived? I don't know. But the Japanese are going to try and save face. People know what that, you know what that means, saving face. Okay? Standing up for your self-respect. Okay, that's what the Japanese are doing. So they are going to invade China. This region of China, China has states like we have states. This state of China, or what do they call it? Provinces in China, okay? So like my daughter Lily is from the Hunan province in China, okay? Emma is from a different race, from a different, okay? So this is Manchuria, okay? They're going to invade it, the Japanese, and take it. They're going to create a puppet state, and they're going to rename it Manchukuo. Okay, so we got Manchuria and Manchukuo. Everybody repeat that after me. Manchuria, Manchukuo. Okay, right here. Now, there's some good movies on this. There's one called The Last Emperor of China. Okay, so what the Japanese will do with a puppet state is you keep the Chinese leaders in power. You give them wine, women, song, money. You give them all of the pleasures of life. But they do what you tell them to do like a puppet. Okay, that's a puppet state. All right. So, guys, this ends the peace. After World War I, 1918, okay, relatively peace on the planet. This ends it. So the hope of the Kellogg-Briand Pact that was going to outlaw war is shattered. Duh. So if you're putting your faith in this piece of paper, well, you're naive. Okay? Now, Woodrow Wilson proposed this thing called the League of Nations after World War I, right? Did we join? No, because the United States Senate voted 82 to 13, no, we're not joining this international organization. Yes. The League of Nations. Okay. Now, so the United States sent an observer to the League of Nations. So the League of Nations meets over this invasion. The League of Nations is supposed to prevent these types of things from happening. So they invoked the Kellogg-Briand Pact, the League of Nations. And Japan is in the League of Nations. They joined. So the Japanese delegation is in the room, sitting there at a table, like this. They invoked the Kellogg-Briand Pact to outlaw Japan. Now, I don't know what that means. How do you outlaw a country? Well, I guess they kick them out of the League of Nations. So the Japanese delegation, there's two of them. They stand up, hold up their papers. They walk out of the room. Dead silent. Now, the Chinese are in trouble. Who's going to go help China? Who's coming to the aid of China? Is the world going to rally around China and help them against the Japanese? Does the United States want war? No, remember, we're isolationists now. Does Britain want war? Does France want war? Who's going to help China? Russia? No. We're going to sit on our hands as the Japanese brutalize the Chinese. As we move through the 30s, guys, you can see here, okay? You can see here, okay? Eventually, everything in yellow and more will fall under Japanese control. So throughout the 30s, the Japanese are incurring further and further into China. Japanese military is very well trained, very disciplined army. They believe that the emperor, they're fighting for the emperor. Okay, the emperor is a god. He's an offspring of the sun god, the emperor. And if you die in service of the emperor, you receive glory in the afterlife. Honor is placed above all else. Honor of your family, honor of your country, honor of your emperor. Very well disciplined, well trained, and brutal. Now, the Chinese have more people, but they're not industrialized as much as Japan. They don't have the same weaponry, the same training, and so forth. Okay? How many guys have ever heard of the rape of Nanking? Now, this doesn't happen for another year or so. Nanking is a city of about 250,000 in China. Okay? The Japanese Prince Yasuhiko Asaka is told to take the city and kill everyone in it. The Chinese military tried to defend the city. They failed. Japanese came in and they raped and they murdered and they tortured 250,000 Chinese civilians. It's one of the worst atrocities in the history of the planet. Okay? The rapes. The Japanese like to cut off heads, use them as trophies. Okay? This is fairly well documented. Now, there's a book called The Rape of Nanking, written by a Chinese woman named Iris Chang. Now, so anytime you're going to read something written by a Chinese author about what happened to the Chinese, you gotta pay, look for the bias in there, okay? But guys, it is well known that the Japanese behavior during the war was way out of bounds. Their treatment of prisoners of war was way out of bounds. Okay, you would much rather be captured by the Germans or the Italians than the Japanese. Okay, because if you were captured by the Japanese, you surrendered to the Japanese. That's dishonorable. See, the Japanese don't surrender. They would rather kill themselves than surrender, because surrendering is dishonorable. And so anybody that was a prisoner of war of the Japanese were dishonored people. We would never surrender. You are a weak human being. You are a dishonorable person, and you deserve to be treated inhumane because you have no honor. It's freaking bad, guys. Okay? The Japanese were brainwashed. Okay? Now, I'm saying this, listen, the Japanese today are our friends, and they're one of the most docile people on the planet. We pacified those folks after the war. Okay? So I'm not trying to be hating on the Japanese. I'm just teaching you history. Okay? So now it's kind of sad they don't really teach this history in Japan. Okay? But they're ashamed of it. So, good movie. Rape of Nanking. I guess 7 minutes. Okay. There's a really good movie. Okay, I wanted to tell you about this movie. Everybody knows Batman, Christian Bale, the actor Christian Bale. This movie is called The War of the Flowers, and it takes place during the rape of Nanking, all right? Here's the story. Guys, when I was in China, when we adopted Lily, we were in a southern city of Guangzhou, and I saw a Catholic church. I'm like, what's that doing here? Well, guys, the Catholic Church was there in China, and there was a church in Nanking during this event, and the Catholic priest was killed. The Japanese were using bombing. This is the first time, guys, that aerial bombing was used in warfare. It was here, okay? And the Catholic priest at this church was killed in a bombing raid. And so the movie's about this undertaker. He's an American, kind of a grifting type fellow, played by Christian Bale. He's sent to this church to give a proper burial to the priest. Well, when he gets to this church, which has got a big fence or wall around it, it was an orphanage for Chinese girls. Okay, that the priest would take care of these kids. Well, the priest was killed. So you just had like a couple dozen of these young girls and one boy at this church, and this guy's supposed to come and well, he hears about what's happening in the city of the rapes and so forth, and he's worried about these girls, these orphans. And so he stays at the church, puts on the collar, and pretends to be the priest. When the Japanese show up, and he's like, "This is God's house. You can't come in here." And he holds off the Japanese for a while, but they're going to come back. Okay, so this kind of sleazy character turns into like this good guy, kind of. Okay, and then these geisha girls show up. You guys know what geisha girls are? Chinese prostitutes. They show up seeking refuge at this church. The Christian Bale character's like, okay, you guys can come in. Sorry. Okay. I'm not going to tell you what happens. Okay? Because I'll ruin the movie. But it's really good and you will cry at the end. I did. War of the Flowers, Christian Bale. Okay? Really gets about this event, Catholic Church, stuff like that. It's great. Okay? One more. Called John Rube. How many guys ever seen Schindler's List? Know the story of Schindler? Okay. Schindler was a German war profiteer, used free Jewish labor, okay, during the war, made a lot of money. And then he used all that money to save a bunch of Jews that worked for him from being shipped off to Auschwitz. Okay, it's a great story, true story. There's a guy in Germany, or excuse me, in China. He's with German. He's German. They own a factory in Nanking. The Germans do. And Germany and Japan are allies. So when the Japanese come to Nanking, John Rube and most of the German workers there at this factory fled the city, but John stayed. And he had a large Nazi flag, and he put it on top of the roof of the factory, so that the Japanese wouldn't bomb the factory because it was Chinese workers inside the factory. Okay, and by using his Nazi alliance with the Japanese, he saved like 2,000 Chinese from murder in Nanking. Okay. There's a movie on this. It was on Netflix called John Rube. It's kind of a cool story. It's kind of got an Oscar Schindler type feel to it. Okay. So, all right, I'm done with that. Okay. So we'll talk more and more about this war, but the peace is ended, guys. Now, here's this one part right here. Henry Stimson wanted economic sanctions against Japan to punish them. You guys know what sanctions are. We're not going to trade with you, okay? Or we're going to stop other people from trading. Hoover says no. He did not want to provoke a conflict with Japan. Okay, so the world is going to do nothing. Others will recognize that the world does not want war. The United States does not want war. Britain and France don't want war. Who's going to stop anybody? Well, that's part of the story, okay? So the last slide I have, guys, this is on Canvas, okay? You can find it. These are 6. Now, on the test, on Tuesday, going to be a 6-point question on the causes of the Great Depression. How many are you going to need to know? I'm going to have you give me some and explain them. So how many are you going to need to give me? Okay? You just got to explain. Give me 3 and explain. Now, you might be writing about some of these causes on other long answer questions on the test, so you can do a short explanation if you want. Okay? I just need a little explanation of it. Okay? I don't need a treatise. Yes?
Give you all 6 and then not explain?
No. Okay. Part of this class is writing. Okay, I've got a review sheet. I'm going to go ahead and pass this out, okay? And we'll have a review day on Monday, okay?